What is up, everybody? Back with another video here today, and it's a really special one. I've got an interview here for you guys with a very awesome guest, Mr. Shawn Drover. Shawn, thanks a lot for coming on, man. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And as many of you know, Shawn was a longtime drummer for Megadeth, the longest tenured drummer in their history. He was in the band for about 10 years. Act of Defiance, Eidolon, a lot of great stuff with him. And he's actually working on some new stuff right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm working on a record with my brother Glenn, who's obviously, as you know, was in Megadeth as well, and King Diamond and all that stuff. And at the beginning of the year, we've been talking about it actually for probably the better part of a year. But the beginning of this year, we actually kind of started taking action and started writing material and talking about who we wanted to play on the record and all that kind of stuff. So, well, I might as well tell you here, we have Joe DiBiase playing bass, who he played on all the classic Fates Warning albums. One of my favorite metal bands. I love that band to death. And Joe's a great guy, so he's going to play bass. He's already started playing bass on the record. And we have a singer named Henning Bossi, German singer who's in the band called Italian for a number of years. He did all the Italian records. Really great, powerful, melodic metal, old school kind of singer. So we're working on material off and on when our schedules permit. And I think we have more than half the material written. Like Glenn and I I think we're on song number 7. We don't have all titles for, we call it, song number 1, song number 2. So I think Glenn and I are assembling song number 7. Joe, I think, has done 5 songs on bass, and I think Henning has done 4 songs with vocals. Okay. So, as Glenn and I get a song completed with drums and guitars, we'll send it to Joe. Joe then does bass. Once we get the bass with the 3 instruments, then we send it off to Henning, and then Glenn and I will usually try to start going in the next one. So that process seems to be working for us, even though we're all in different parts of the globe. With technology the way it is now, it enables you to do this kind of thing. So we're excited about the materials. Pretty strong stuff. So we're real happy with how things are going, and hopefully by the end of the year or early next year, it'll be completed, and then we'll just shop it around and get it out on a label.
Awesome. So is that the style of the music, just like heavy and thrashy, or?
It's not that dissimilar from the stuff that I've done. The Eidolon stuff that we did years ago, I wrote 90% of that music. So it's and then with Act of Defiance as well, I wrote almost half the material on those records as well. So I don't really stray too far. I just kind of go with what I know, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I don't try to say, okay, I'm gonna write this kind of, it's just metal. For me, it's like, as long as it's heavy, I'm cool with it. So there's not a ton of thrashy stuff on at this point. Not to say that there won't be, but it's, there's a lot of up-tempo stuff, and it's just metal songs, man. You know what I mean? I try not to put a definition on everything. Yeah, like everybody else tries to do. It's to me, it's just metal, Yeah. Some songs are slow, some songs are fast, some songs are mid tempo. There you go.
Awesome. So is this going to be like a new band going forward? Do you have a name for it, or is it going to be released like?
That's the hardest part of this whole thing. Is we cannot seem to. We're getting close because we want all 4 guys to like the name. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you call it banana sandwich for all I care. You know what I mean? It's, all the cool names are taken. Judas Priest is taken. Yeah. Iron Maiden's taken. It's like, it's really difficult to. This is the first time we've all kind of said, or someone will come up with a name. Oh, what about this? Yeah, I like it. You look it up. Some band's got it.
Yeah, for real.
It's like, dude. So then you go back to square one. So we're kind of. Just sending names back and forth, or if we do come up with something, but dude, nobody has it, nobody's taken the name. It's like, oh, well, I don't like it. So it's like, all right, well, but it'll, as soon as we know and get that sorted out, then we could start doing the Facebook page and the Twitter page, and start giving a little more information as it becomes available. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But as we talk right now, there's no name for the band yet.
Gotcha. And you mentioned Act of Defiance. any plans? I talked to you about this before, but any plans, or you want to give an update on that band right here?
There's no update whatsoever right now. Chris has been in Flames now for God, I think almost 3 years. I think at this point, and we just kind of it just kind of came to a halt. Everybody's doing different things. Matt's doing a lot of different projects and stuff. He's doing a Shadows Fall reunion show in December of this year, and it just kind of came to a bit of a standstill, which was fine. I really enjoyed those 2 records that we did, and I'm not saying that I'm not really sure what the status is at this point. So, but having said that, I'm pressing forward, as is everybody else. Henry has done. God, I think he's put out 2 or 3 different kinds. He put out a solo record, which was a really different kind of music, almost more like I don't want to say pure country kind of thing, but it was like a real different kind of record and stuff. So, that made him happy. So, we all supported that. And I think it's great for what the kind of music he was doing. And, Chris is busy with In Flames and stuff. So,
yeah.
And now, I'm doing this record with Glenn. So musically speaking, we're all staying busy in our own ways, but Act of Defiance is kind of in limbo, certainly at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those 2 records were great. I mean, it would be cool if y'all did something else, but if not, yeah, anyone that hasn't heard them, go listen to them. Really heavy and cool stuff. But so now I guess let's jump way back. Around what age, did you first start playing drums and take that up?
13. I was Glenn was 10, and I was 13. He got a guitar. He got an acoustic for Christmas on his 9th birthday, and on his 10th or on Christmas time, he was 9. He got an acoustic. When he was 10, he got an electric with an amplifier, and I kind of decided at that point, well, if I'm gonna do something, I should probably start. And my father and my older brother and Glenn were all guitar players, and I figured, well, I certainly gravitated a little more towards drums, the whole rhythmic process of that, and I just love that. So I figured I'd just start doing that. So we just started jamming together, learning to play and all that stuff at a very young age, and it kind of just went from there. So it's been but I'm 55 now, so I've been playing for quite a long time.
Over 40 years, yeah, long time. Yeah. Cool. When you were first getting started, what were you listening to a lot, and like what were you playing along to? Maybe the first song you learned.
Well, those are 2 different. Yeah, those are 2. What I was listening to certainly was Rush and things that were absolutely no way, and yeah, it wasn't even in the realm of possibility. But what we started to learn to play was Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Cat Scratch Fever by Ted Nugent, songs that were certainly from a drumming perspective, because Glenn was already at like a year ahead of me. Like he had started doing, my older brother Brian would teach him things, and he was a very quick learner. Glenn was an extremely quick learner, and he really absorbed information like a sponge. So it wasn't too long before he had the easy songs kind of, he could play along to them. Money by Pink Floyd, that was the first guitar solo he ever learned. I remember it vividly. Yeah. He was working on it, and I remember coming down the bass, and he's like, dude, listen, and he played it like note for note, and it was like, it's like, wow, that was super impressive, But so yeah, when again he had to kind of revert back so I could kind of catch up a little bit and learn things like those songs and stuff like that, and of course there's a lot more than that. It escapes me probably, and I'm sure Smoke on the Water was probably one of them as well. The basics to kind of get you going and that kind of thing. But we also as well, even if I wasn't playing with Glenn, I was always playing with the headphones along to records and just trying to learn it that way. You know what I mean? That was the old school way. Way pretty much Glenn and I still would learn any kind of material is just to play along to a CD or something like that. So those are the basics when you're young. Just slap on some headphones and just try to emulate what was happening. You're trying to learn.
Very cool. So just another question I like to ask: what was the first album you bought and the first concert you went to?
First concert was Rush Moving Pictures, 1981. Wow, that's the first concert I ever saw. Great, and that was that actually is released on DVD. They recorded that show, and that show was you can watch it online, and they released it on DVD as well, or VHS back in the day. But that was my first show. First record I ever bought was it may have been Rush Hemispheres on red vinyl, maybe. No, that's not true. No, I can't remember. The first thing I got was my parents got me an 8-track stereo with an 8-track. And I got A Night at the Opera and News of the World for Christmas.
Okay.
Those are the two first records that were bought. My parents got me for Christmas. Yeah. Was Queen, A Night at the Opera, and News of the World on 8-track.
Nice. Yeah, the first album I got was actually Out of the Cellar by Rat.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that record.
Yeah, it's great. One of my favorites for sure.
Yeah,
and
absolutely great.
Oh yeah. I've heard you say before that you do actually also play guitar. You did some backing vocals for Megadeth. I'm sure maybe you can play bass as well. I'm just curious, have you ever thought about possibly doing a solo album where you're like the primary musician and vocalist?
I could do all that. It would be in terms of guitar precision. I mean, I'm not near as good as my brother on guitar. So it's like, why bother? I'm just going to get Glenn to play on it anyway. I mean, could I do it? Yeah, but it's like, it would be, I'll present a song to him or ideas.
Yeah.
I'll say, here's the idea. If you can refine it or make it better, go for it. I don't care. As long as I agree that it's, but we've done that since day one, since all of the old Eidolon stuff way back in the early mid 90s. I would write most of the material. He would kind of refine it and he always gives suggestions like, hey, we should, maybe double that verse or chop the last verse in half or put a bridge in there, all that. We always work together in terms of song structure or he'll just tell me, I'm not digging this idea. I don't think it sounds good. And I don't have, that kind of thing doesn't hurt my feelings because I don't have any kind of ego about that. Because again, if you're working on a record with somebody, everybody should like it. Otherwise, I might as well just make a solo album, play everything on it, and then I don't care what anybody thinks because I wrote all this stuff. So that kind of thing never really bothered me. I never really had much of an ego about that kind of stuff, unless it was something that I really did believe in. And I would say, well, no, just keep listening to it or whatever, or maybe we could change the key of it, or there's always variables with all that stuff, with how we've always done songwriting and all that stuff. That at the end of the day, you're just writing riffs and you're gluing them together. If you don't like that riff, here, I'll write another one. Maybe it'll be even better than that one.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's how things work out as well. So, that's basically, that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I don't play guitar as well as Glenn does. So to me, it makes no sense to do that. I'm very satisfied and very happy writing songs and recording with Glenn or stuff we did with Act of Defiance. Same with Chris. When we would do that Defiance songs, I would present a song and I would say, here it is. If you can make a riff better or change it, as long as I think it's better, it doesn't bug me and I'll go for it. It's all about the song being as good as it can be, in my opinion, and not, not for some stupid ego-driven crap. So I'm not about that at all.
Gotcha. Nice. So with Eidolon, based on the Metal Archives page, it says y'all didn't form till like 93 or so.
But then,
What were you doing like before that, leading up to it? Did you play in some bands in the 80s or what?
Yeah, we did other stuff. Well, I moved away. I moved to Florida in 1988.
Okay.
January of 1988. Was it 1987? One of those. It was either 87 or 88. And so I moved away. Glenn was still up in Ontario, Canada. So that kind of put all the stuff that we're doing. We were doing bands in the 80s and all that stuff. We were playing the local clubs in Toronto and around Toronto. I actually joined a thrash band called Infernal Majesty for a year. They had an album out called None Shall Defy, which to me is still one of the best thrash albums ever put to tape. I don't know if you've ever heard it or not, but if you're in old school thrash, I mean, that record is friggin' amazing in my opinion. I still talk to Steve and Kenny at times online and stuff, and Chris is here as well. So I joined. That was the last thing that I did in Canada before moving to. I actually quit Infernal Majesty because I moved to Florida. That was the reason why I left that band. So
was that to like go join another band or?
No, I just wanted to change. I ultimately I did of course want to resume the music and see if I could find musicians down there, but I met my wife when I was on vacation in Florida. I met her on Madeira Beach in Florida, and I flew back home to Toronto, and we just started corresponding and stuff. And we just said, well, hey, why don't we try living together and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of changed everything for me in terms of, it certainly brought the music thing to a halt for a while. And then our daughter was born and all that stuff. So, but eventually I started to slowly get back with writing music with Glenn. And he had just gotten a recording studio in the early 90s. So he was learning the ropes of that. And when he felt he was ready to go and confident enough to do some quality recording, we started writing music again. Yeah. And that's how the whole Eidolon thing started. We wrote a bunch of instrumental songs. The first two things that we did, we recorded a couple. They're actually still on cassette. We have cassettes of them actually that we had manufactured, and they were just instrumental shred stuff. All that Tony McAlpine and all that old Vinnie Moore stuff, and that was all like shred-driven instrumental music. We were doing that, and then we eventually said, "Well, why don't we get a real band together? We get a singer and all that stuff." So it evolved into that.
Yeah. Eidolon's great. Y'all had 6-7 albums. Do you possibly see yourself going back to that at all? Trying to like reboot that band, or
no? Because that band was never successful to begin with. Now, I don't write music for success, to be successful, but at this point of the game, to do another record by a band that never really sold in the first place, to me doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but by having said that, all I'm doing differently is we have a different bass player and a different singer, and we're going to call it something else. But it's still me and Glenn putting the music together. So it's just a band name. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just, if it was like even moderately successful back in the day and like a lot of people there was a demand for it, I would consider it. But to me, it's too much of a step backwards in terms of writing a record that, and again, then now you have a record company might say, oh, Eidolon, you did 6 records and you really didn't sell a lot. So I don't think we want to take a chance at signing. You got to think of all that kind of thing as well. So there's a lot to it to go back and try to do something that didn't live up to record companies' expectations or our expectations in terms of sales and popularity and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So you got to remember that in the mid '90s, it was a bad time for metal, man.
Yeah, it was.
It was like saying you had leprosy back then. It's like, except the really extreme stuff. But to put, the music that we were doing at the time had a melodic singer, which I still love to this day. Yeah. I love melodic singers. I love all kinds of singing, but to have a singer like that, we geared that whole Eidolon thing towards Europe and Japan, and that's when we got signed. We got signed Metal Blade Europe, and we had distribution deals in Japan and all that kind of thing. So that it was catered to that because we knew it was still selling there and we could do okay.
Yeah.
But in North America, it was almost non-existent. But we just took what we could get. But had it not been for Eidolon, we wouldn't have got the Megadeth gig. That's how Glenn got the Megadeth gig, because someone referred him to Megadeth, and Dave, I guess, had listened to one of our records and said, okay, he's a candidate, contact him. Kind of. So I'll always be thankful for that band, because it got us to where we are today and it got us to have the careers that both Glenn and I have had. Yeah. But I just like, and I like to move forward as well. So I respect the past and I love everything that I've done, most everything that I've done. But it's fun to move. It's fun to move forward as well and try something new. That's exciting to me.
Yeah, of course. So you mentioned getting the Megadeth gig. So Glenn got in the band first, and then how did you get in the band? Did he just suggest you to Dave, or did you have to do an audition?
When Glenn got the Megadeth gig, I was just flying to Sweden to record the drums for the last Eidolon record. That's how it came out of the blue for Glenn. He got an email. He called me. He got an email. And he said, "Hey, I got an email about auditioning for Megadeth." And we always goof around and say stupid things. I'm like, yeah, do whatever. He's like, "No, I'm serious." I'm like, yeah, sure you are. He's like, "No, I'm real." So he sent me, I said, "Wow, this is, how did this come about?" And some fan in England, an Eidolon fan in England, Sam Shutterford, who's a friend of ours now, I guess he contacted some of Megadeth's people, and recommended Glenn because Dave was resurrecting the band at this time, right? So I was beyond. I loved, by I am a huge Megadeth fan of the early stuff. I mean, the first 3 records to me, I absolutely love. Peace Sells, the first album, So Far So Good, So What. Those albums are gold to me. I mean, I love a lot of the other records as well, but those 3 records to me are just the pin, especially Peace Sells. To me, that's the pinnacle of greatness, in my opinion, for that band. So when Glenn got the call and eventually got the gig, I was so excited. I just couldn't believe it. And so I went to Sweden. I said, well, we just got a record deal to do that last Eidolon record. So I went to Sweden to do the drums while I was calling him every day from Sweden. He just got to Arizona for rehearsals. I think they had 2 or 3 weeks of rehearsals. How are things going? Oh, they're going good. And how are things going the next day? I said, well, so there was some problems, and I don't know what they are to this day, and I never inquired really, between Dave and Nick. Something wasn't gelling or something, I'm not really sure. And it ended up where they let Nick go, and Dave said, well, what are we going to do for a drummer? Can your brother do it? Glenn said, yeah, he could cut the gig. Right. So I just get home from Sweden. I'll try to make it short. I just get home from Sweden, and I come home on a Friday, and he says, you sitting down? I said, what are you talking about? Because, dude, they want you on the next plane to come out and join the band and start rehearsals. I'm like, and that day was 7 days before the tour started. So I flew out. I told my wife, I said, they just asked me to join Megadeth. I said, well, you have to do it. So it was like lightning. It was like lightning struck twice. To have Glenn and Megadeth would have been the best thing, and would have been great. But to have both of us in that band was like lightning struck twice for us. So we were, really, I was so excited. So I jumped on a plane the next morning, learning material that I didn't know. Like I'd lost touch with them, like in the mid '90s when they were starting to get not as heavy, like around Euthanasia and that kind of thing. I started to not be. They weren't as hardcore for me, and I was kind of going in a heavier direction. At the Gates of Obituary and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't really learn those songs. So I was learning songs on the plane that I'd never even heard. Stuff off Cryptic Writings, stuff off of Euthanasia mostly. I knew all the older stuff. Simply Destruction, Holy War. I could fudge that 90% just by refreshing it maybe a couple times. So I wanted to focus on the things that I didn't know and practice those and play those in rehearsal as much as possible to really absorb the song. So that was the approach that I took to that. And so we had 4 days rehearsal. 5th day we're on the tour bus to Reno, Nevada, and 6th day we did the show.
Yeah,
just like that, dude. It was like pressure from hell, but
yeah. How did that first show go? Pretty well.
It went great, dude. The venue forgot to put a barricade. It was a theater, right? So the seats. It was like a nice theater and stuff in a hotel, whatever, 4,000 or 5,000 seat capacity, whatever it was. And they didn't put the barricades between the front, so people were on the stage diving like 10. And I thought, okay, this is great. This is an old school Megadeth show, just like the friggin' videos and stuff. And come to find out, Dave got pissed. Where's the friggin' barricades and stuff? I mean, there's like 10, 20, 25 people jumping up on stage and stuff. So it became like
yeah.
But in my mind, it's like, this is so great. This is friggin' old school, everybody stage diving and jumping around and stuff. So, but
yeah, that would have been, what time of year was that? Was that late?
October 2004.
Yeah, so I figure he might have been getting pissed about that because that was like right after Dimebag Darrell. I don't know if he might have been getting pissed about.
It was before.
Was it before?
Because Dime that happened in December.
Okay.
If I remember right, I believe it was early December.
Okay. I was thinking it was August for some reason, but that was when he was born. It was August '66, and then December. Okay, yeah. Yeah,
if memory serves me, I think that happened in late November or December. But yeah, I mean, so certainly everything after that, of course, was even more security driven. But in my mind, that was just like an old school Megadeth show. I didn't know any better. I didn't know there was supposed to be barricades there. But that's what I remember. Certainly, one of the things I remember about that show is it was a lot of stage diving and stuff. So I thought it was. I loved it.
Sounds awesome. So a couple years go by, and then the first album you recorded with the band was United Abominations. You have good memories of that. How did that go?
Yeah, we went to we recorded drums and some bass in a Sarm studio outside of London, England. So we all stayed at this, I believe it was, I don't know, a 16th or 17th century mansion that used to be owned by David Gilmour of Pink Floyd, who lived there with his family. And they moved out, and producer Trevor Horn, who was in the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star, and produced like tons and tons of records, like tons of bands, a lot of successful stuff. So he was living there and owned the recording studio. So we had heard that part of the house was quote unquote haunted. It had voices or spirits or whatever it was. We've gotten wind of it. So of course, the first thing that me and Glenn do when we get there is, okay, what room were the freaking ghosts in? And we went out in there and stuff, and of course, there was no ghosts or anything at that time in that room. But it was a great experience, and it was just such a I've never done anything like that. I've never recorded in a place like that. So I had a lot of good memories of that. A ton of it was filmed. We had a video crew come over, and there's, I don't even know, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours of footage, of film footage of that. Everything, just us hanging around, recording, walking around, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I have a lot of good memories about that record, and
awesome.
I like a lot of Night Abomination. I think it's got some strong material on it and stuff. So, it was a good time.
Awesome. And I saw a picture on Facebook. I think it was you were on one of John Bonham's old kits. Yeah. Did you record like part of the album with those drums, or was that just...
Dave surprised me. There's a place in England where it has all this vintage gear that was owned by, that drum set was owned by John Bonham in the mid '70s. Yeah, actually, you don't think he ever toured with that kit. I think he recorded with it. I'm not sure what record either, but there's pictures of John on that kit, and there's pictures of Mick Fleetwood on that kit. Mick Fleetwood, there's a picture of him on it. I don't know if he recorded it or just played on the kit, because it's John Bonham's kit. But anyway, they had all this vintage gear. They had some gear, bass gear that was owned by Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, and all this classic stuff that was, and you could rent it. So Dave found out about this, and he said, I got a surprise for you when we get to the studio. I'm like, what are you talking about? He wouldn't tell me what it was. And that was a nice surprise to see that. I had the Pearl kit I was using at the time, that whole thing. So, and John's kit was so different. I mean, he had 26 inch bass drum, and it wasn't sonically compatible with what we were doing in terms of the entire kit. Plus, the kit was small; it was only a 4-piece kit. And but I used snare on some on the song itself. United Abominations got this just like the snare roll. I'm trying to remember. Snare roll at the beginning of the song and all that stuff. So I used that snare on the beginning of that song. I think I used the floor tom as well. They had a big 18-inch floor toms. So I used that. That was incorporated in the kit as well. So I used that more than anything. And the bass drum I may have used on a couple of overdubs, maybe. But I certainly used the floor tom, and I used the snare. I wanted to make sure that I got it on somewhere on that record, because it was just such a cool thing to even be able to play. So, but when I wasn't recording, I was playing on it. I played it a lot, so it wasn't. It didn't sit in a corner and collect dust. That's for sure.
Awesome, yeah, that's super cool. And then after United Abominations, of course, Endgame, I think is the heaviest, most aggressive album you were on with Megadeth. Were you pushing for that, Dave, to go heavier and faster, or?
Well, I mean, you always, I mean, we were kind of starting to get on a roll at that, getting kind of back into good graces with a lot of fans, and showing that, we can write new music, and it's heavy as well. It's not, we weren't wimping out by any means. So, I mean, the comeback record, the record that we started back on was The System Has Failed. And I like a lot of music on that record. Black Wheel of the Universe, I think it's a fantastic song. I think it's really great heavy tune. We opened that tour with that song. It was a blast playing that tune as an opener, and it always went over well. So he kind of went along with that and that vibe because the record was pretty well received by a lot. Not everybody, but that's always subjective. But a lot of fans like that record, so we went a little heavier with United Abominations, and that was pretty well received as well. And then I think we really honed in. We got Andy Sneap as a producer. He came in at the tail end of United Abominations to help produce United Abominations right at the end, and he was pushing for it, having conversations with Dave about, having some up-tempo material and stuff. So, ultimately that's Dave's decision to to do the material he wants to do with, Megadeth's his band and stuff. So we were, but there was always talk, we would always talk about things. And Dave and I were the ones who were jamming on, it was me and him there first. It wasn't full band when we did Endgame. It was just Dave and myself. We would jam on ideas, because we were just recording drums at that point, putting songs together and putting drums down, and then everybody else layers your stuff. So it was myself, Dave, and Andy Sneap in the studio. David acquired this huge office space that he converted into his own recording studio, which is great. We had our own, and in the back, a warehouse to rehearse for tours. So we had everything in-house. It was great, So, but certainly subconsciously on my part, and I would talk to Andy about it as well, and talk to Dave, and Dave always encouraged us to write music. So I came in with a song that ended up being called Head Pressure, where we used probably, I don't know, maybe 70% of the song that I had. Dave took out the first part of the song, which is a little more mid-tempo. We just started with the fast stuff that I used, and he added some parts as well to it, which became Head Pressure. And that song was, very well received. And the first video, the first single, it was nominated for a Grammy and all that good stuff. So it's definitely, certainly the heaviest record that I was on in my tenure in Megadeth. So
awesome.
That went over quite well.
Oh yeah, that's definitely. I think United Abominations and Endgame are some of the best Megadeth albums of all time. And oh yeah, so like looking back on those 4 albums you were on with the band, what would you say? Would you say like Endgame's probably your favorite, or
Endgame and United Abominations in that order?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then after Endgame, I mean, it wasn't quite as aggressive on those next 2, and ultimately, I know if anybody curious, we don't have to spend too much time on this. Your departure from the band, was it mainly due to like stylistic differences, you'd say?
I think at that time, after 10 years, I was getting, I was 48. I joined the band, I was 38. I left the band, I was 48. I figured if I want to do something on my own and write my own music, if I wait too long, it's going to be too late. I was still young enough to where I could put something new together and certainly go in the direction that I wanted to go in, which is I'm always an advocate for the heavy stuff. I love, especially with a band like Megadeth, for me, certainly, and I'll never douche any Megadeth records or any records that I've been on. Super Collider was not the heaviest record that band ever did, certainly. And for me, I don't know, maybe subconsciously at that point as well, I was maybe starting to think of, well, I want to record some heavier material, and I want to record some of my own material. So I was starting to have that thought process as that tour was going on. And little did I know, Chris was kind of thinking the same thing. So when I let him know about it, he was like, well, I'm thinking about doing the same thing. I was like, why don't we just join forces and start a band? Yeah. And that's kind of at the end of that tour, the world tour for that record. We ended in Japan, and we were talking about it then, and that's kind of how it went. I wouldn't necessarily say it was. Well, I guess it's a musical difference in terms of I wanted to go in a heavier direction. And at that last record, the band was not in that the same vein as where I would like it to go, and that's fine. But I think it was more of I wanted to do this before it was too late. I mean, I'm not going to leave the band at 58 years old and put out I don't know. That was kind of my thought process. So, it was. I just wanted to move on and do something different. I enjoyed being in that band immensely the entire time I was there. I have nothing but good things to say about that organization, and certainly Dave. He gave me a career. That Megadeth and Dave Mustaine are the reasons that I've been able to do what I've been able to do, hands down. So I'll always be grateful to him. He knows that. It's not a secret. So
Awesome. Yeah. And I've got a hypothetical here. Just coming up in 2023 is the 40th anniversary of Megadeth. I'm just curious, if they were to do like a celebration anniversary show, like in LA or something to celebrate that, bringing back,
all the old guys,
all like alive and like willing
the
former
familia.
members. Yeah. Would you be open to going to play a few songs with them? Or?
Of course.
Yeah.
Any kind of celebration like that, bringing all the old family back or whatever for a celebration. Of course you would. Why wouldn't I do it? It's like the Kiss farewell tour. The doors open for Ace and Peter to come on stage and do a couple songs at some point. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know the dynamics of that. You just read stuff in the press, but that's something a lot of people would like to see that. Certainly. So if an opportunity ever, for some kind of big anniversary or whatever, of course. Why wouldn't I? I think most of the guys would. Why wouldn't they? It's a celebration at that point, and
for sure, that would be super cool. So hopefully something like that happens. But and the question I like to end on, just like a fun one: if you were gonna put together like your all-time super group, dead or alive, you're the drummer. Who you got with you?
Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
Randy Rhoads.
Okay.
You gotta have two guitar players.
Two guitar players.
That would be interesting. That's I can go with. There's so many that I could. But I would. Those two guys. I mean, there's so many guitar players, so many musicians that are just unbelievably talented. Bass player. I mean, you would have to go with Geddy, I guess. I mean, Geddy Lee, or certainly, or. Again, there's tons of for the rock realm. I would have to go with Geddy Lee for bass. John Lord on keyboards. Deep Purple, gotta have that. Huge Deep Purple fan. Singing, I mean, oh my god, probably Dio.
Okay,
probably Ron James Dio. I mean, that's a pretty damn good band.
Oh yeah.
Then I kick myself out of the band, become their manager, and then put Neil Peart on drums.
Awesome. That's great. So
because I'd be the weakest link for sure. With the best hair. Weakest link with the best hair. I'll be the hair manager.
Yeah, for sure. And before we wrap up here, just let everybody know where they can find your stuff. If you got any like drum clinics or anything in the works, when you're new out,
obviously with COVID, that's brought most of that to a screeching halt. Certainly with any kind of public gathering. So that's certainly in limbo with that kind of thing right now. Although I think things are starting to crank up a little bit. If you want to, I do in terms of social media. I'm more of a Twitter guy, so any communication I do is usually with Twitter. I'm not, I'm not the biggest social media guy on the planet. I mean, I do Twitter. I got a private Facebook page that I'm not on a terrible amount, but if I have something to promote or something that I'm doing or something that I'm partaking in, Twitter's the place to find me for any kind of, or in the future band stuff. I mean, once this band gets a name that I'm working on right now, Glenn, Joe, and Henning, then we will get that social media stuff happening. But until then, any kind of update, which I've posted a few videos about what we're currently working on with this new band. I put on my Twitter page. So that's kind of where to find any information would be to go there.
Awesome. And are you shooting for early next year for that coming out, or?
I'm shooting for early next year. That is done. Coming out I'd like it to be, I would like it to be done by the end of this year. I don't know if that's realistic or not, just based on our schedules and availability, We'll have some hot patches where we'll get a bunch of work done, and then we won't be able to do anything for like a month and then kind of resume. So I'm trying not to predict it or give a definite time slot, but I would gather by the beginning of next year, it should be done and mixed and ready to go. And then the process goes to finding the record company. So that whole process takes place at that point, so that could, depending on how everything has gone with COVID, it's like, where are they at in terms of what they're, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So but any updates, any and all updates will certainly be on the band's social media as it gets developed.
Sounds good. And dude, this was awesome. Thanks a lot for coming on.
You're welcome, man. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. And everybody watching, thank you very much. And until next time, later.